Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, as that will help grow my channel. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd appreciate that as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave those and I will respond. Again, thank you. This week's project is going to be a Birdseye maple bowl. And here I'm just showing you that I've used a glue block. I don't always show this, but you saw there I have a pan of hot melt glue, which I heat up on the stove, and then I melt the glue. Dip the glue block into the glue, and then put it on the bowl. That's a very, very strong way to hold the bowl in place. Probably stronger than gripping it with a tenon or a mortise or the worm screw. So I do use this. This bowl I had no choice. The bottom of the bowl was flat. There was no tenon on it, so I pretty well had to use a glue block, but I do like using it. Now with the bowl mounted in the lathe, I start working on the outside of the bowl. I started off here at about 300 RPM, just because it was a bit out of round. So just until I got it round, I ended up going about 300 RPM. Again, with my new lathe, this is an advantage I have, whereas before my minimum speed was 550, which would have been a little fast for this bowl just to get started. I'm using my bowl gouge, and it's cutting very, very well and removing a lot of material. Normally I wouldn't go downhill on a bowl. Normally I'd start at the bottom and work up. But with maple I find it's very hard, and it cuts well even going downhill. Here you can see this bowl had some bark inclusion in it, and it's not solid. So right now I'm just cutting it down to try and see about getting rid of it, or at least reducing the amount of it significantly. This is a twice turn bowl, meaning that it was roughed out and then let to dry, and then I'm just finishing it up here. In fact, this bowl was given to me, and someone else had already made some decisions around the shape of the bowl. And because of the bark inclusion, I end up putting quite a bit of a slope in the bottom just to get rid of that. But the top of the bowl is fairly straight. I could have changed that, but I decided to leave it straight, and you'll see later on I ended up putting 2 beads in that straight section on the bowl. Here I've switched to my carbide tool. The carbide tool does a good job at smoothing out and giving a more of a finished cut. But you'll see here it doesn't remove as much wood as the gouge was doing, but it still removes a good amount, just not quite as much. In that previous section of the video, I just left the audio on and also left the playback at normal speed. People often ask me how long it takes to turn a bowl, but in my videos I often speed them up just because nobody wants to watch an hour's worth of video. Here I'm using my skew chisel just to cut some beads into the top of the bowl, which will be a decorative function. The skew chisel normally isn't used on bowls, but it does work well for cutting beads. So it comes to a sharp point, and I can roll it to create those round beads. You've seen this before. Now that I'm done shaping, I'm switching to my negative rake scraper just to remove any lines that I may have on the outside of the bowl. It turns out I did end up doing some more cutting because of that bark inclusion, but I did use a negative rake scraper just to smooth it out a bit. So I've shaped the outside of the bowl. I'm happy with that. You can see here I've got 2 beads on it. I like the look of that. My concern still is this. It's gotten a lot smaller, but I'm about as thin right here as I want to be. I might have a little bit left. Luckily, this is a twice turn bowl, so it was very, very thick to start with. It was probably close to 2 inches. But I've ended up taking most of that to get rid of this. This here is solid. Right here is solid, and I don't feel any gap. I mean, I could put a little glue on that and it'd be good. It's right here I'm concerned about. That piece there is not solid out to there. It's chipped away, so that won't stay. Or if it does, it won't be smooth. It'll be a divot. So I'm going to work the inside, and then once I get down there, I'll see for sure how much material I have left and see that I can get rid of that. Worst case scenario, I do the inside and then I determine I can't get rid of any more of that, which would be not good at this point. But let's go ahead, switch to the inside and start taking away some material there. I know I said earlier that I don't use a skew on a bowl, but here I am using a skew again. The reason I did it here was I just want to establish the rim, and I'm going to switch to my bowl gouge, but with the bowl gouge, it doesn't cut well if I just introduce the tip. You want to be able to ride the bevel. So right at the very top of the rim, there's nothing for the bevel to rub up against and ride. So that's why I use my skew chisel, just to establish a bit of a lip, and that helps hold the bowl gouge in place to get it started. Once I get it started, then I have no problem just continuing on down the bowl, as you see here, using the push cut and removing quite a bit of material fairly quickly. During this phase of turning the bowl, I will stop fairly frequently just to measure the wall thickness and to make sure that I'm not getting too thin in any one spot and that it's uniform all the way down the sides of the bowl. Once I've done that, then I switch to working the bottom, which for most bowl turners, myself included, is the trickiest spot, the transition from the side of the wall to the bottom of the bowl. And you do have to be careful. Sometimes the tool is cantilevered out a little bit further than normal. I do not have a curved tool rest. That would be helpful. Mine is straight, so my tool is cantilevered the furthest right there at that point, which also happens to be the most difficult spot to turn. So the inside and the outside is pretty well fully shaped. I've got a little bit on the bottom of the inside to do and some sanding. But I just want to talk about what I'm going to do here. Again, I'm glued on with a glue block. I think what I'll do is I'm going to just cut this off. Just come in here with a parting tool and just come straight in. And it'll just be a flat bottom. And then I'll reverse it and we'll clean up the bottom, put a little bit of detail on it. But I don't think I'm going to bother putting a tenon and re-gripping it in a chuck. I don't see the value in that. I'll just cut it off at this point. Off camera, I applied my normal finish, my abrasive paste and polishing paste. This applies a very good finish, especially to very hard wood such as this Birdseye maple. So it gave me a really nice gloss that you can see here. Here I'm just using my carbide tool just to open up the gap a little bit between the glue block and the bottom of the bowl. And this will just make it a bit easier to put the parting tool in there. And also, this carbide is faster than the parting tool. So now I'm just using my thin kerf parting tool and removing the material on the bottom of the bowl with this. It is a little grabby here. I don't know if you can notice that. I apologize. It's not fully centered on the screen, but it is a little grabby. Not sure why, but I cut down as far as I could with this before switching to the handsaw just to finish it up. So here's the finished product. It turned out very nice. It's a beautiful bowl. I don't know if you can see it, but it does have a ton of eyes in it. So this is Birdseye maple, and there is a ton of eyes in it. It also has some chatoyance in it as well. I don't know if we can capture that here in the camera or not. Chatoyance is almost a three-dimensional look. You can see it a bit right there. But yeah, it turned out quite well. I didn't finish the bottom yet. I do a little bit more sanding to do, and I'm going to laser engrave my logo on it. As I mentioned, this is a charity bowl for the Martinon Yacht Club, which I'm a member of, and they're doing an auction, so this will be a donation for that. So it's got two beads on it, as you can see. I think it turned out quite well. It does have, and this sometimes will happen with Birdseye maple, it is smooth as can be, but there's a spot there where some eyes are pulled out. You can feel a little divot. It looks worse than it feels. But unfortunately the eyes come out. At that point I had an option to try and sand it all the way down, cut it down to get rid of that, but it's not that bad, and I decided to leave it because run the risk even as you take that down that another eye will pop out. So I left it, but other than that it's smooth as glass. It turned out very nice. So again, this will be available for auction. Here I'm using my laser engraver just to engrave the bottom of the bowl. I like to put my logo on it as well as the year and the species of the wood. Here it is complete. You can see my logo, the year, and the fact that it's Birdseye maple. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you've enjoyed this. Turned out to be a beautiful bowl. It will be a charitable donation to the auction, as I had mentioned earlier. Two beads on the side of the bowl just for a little extra interest. And you can see the amount of eyes that are in this bowl. It has definitely a lot. Don't forget to leave a comment contest to be entered into a chance to win a bowl.